Namaste. So yesterday I think that the universe had different ideas. Uh, it was time to stop the teaching for the moment. So we'll continue where we left off. I was starting to talk about my Guruji. When he was studying astrology as a young child, he would go to his teacher of astrology, and that teacher expected the students to arrive punctually at 6 a.m. If they arrived late, they weren't admitted. And then sometimes he would have them sit all day from 6 a.m. until maybe 8 p.m. And he'd sit silently in front of the class. He was a very strict disciplinarian, they say. He would sit silently and none of the students would speak. They'd sit and just wait for the teaching to come, and at 8 p.m. he might announce, "No teaching on astrology today. Class dismissed." And in this way he got rid of a lot of students who were not serious students, who didn't have the qualities they needed to study astrology. We don't put that emphasis now, but certain qualities are needed. We can't have a selfish disposition. In the text, I quote Rishi Parashara from his text on astrology, what qualities he says are needed of a student of astrology. But a person can't be selfish. They can't be motivated by wanting to get some gains in their own life. We can't really learn astrology by studying our own chart because we need objectivity. To practice astrology, we need clarity. We need to be detached from the situation emotionally. If we have a desire to help, if we have a desire to develop ourselves spiritually, then maybe we can gain some access through our own astrology. But if we're trying to predict the future, we won't see it clearly in our own lives. If we're trying to get some gains in the world, we won't accomplish them. But if we're humble and we want to come closer to the divine, if we want to learn more about our karma, then we can use astrology for this perhaps. We can't have a desire to accomplish material things. We can't want to earn a lot through astrology. We can't want to be appreciated. I'm teaching this class, I'm writing this text. This won't get much appreciation in the astrological community. And that's okay, I'm not seeking that at all. I'm seeking to teach the traditional ways of astrology to help deepen people's understanding and practice of it for the benefit of humanity. A person has to be humble. A person has to have a sincere desire to help. A person has to be truthful. To study astrology, a person has to have faith in the teacher and discipline. A study like this will work on a person inwardly. They may come to the teacher and they start to feel badly because the presence of the teacher may bring up the inner attachments. A wise student will understand what's happening and say, okay, I'm feeling a lot of difficult emotions now, they'll pass in time. This situation is bringing it up because it's clearing me out. When students lack wisdom, they'll say, oh, well, I feel afraid, so this teacher must be doing something bad. I feel angry, so this teacher must be doing something to make me angry. They try to make sense of it logically. We've got to go beyond the logical mind. In the ancient times in Greece, there was an oracle at Delphi. And young women, sometimes older women, would serve as this oracle, and they'd do a lot of spiritual practice. If they had been married, if they had had families, that's a lot of snoring, puppy dog. There's a lot of snoring. Be quiet, honey. Good girl. Good girl. Sorry, the noise is there. I hope it's not distracting too much. She may continue. She tends to do that. What is this an omen of? What does this tell us? We've got to develop that intuition like the oracle. These women would do a serious practice. If they had had families before they started living in this place in seclusion, they'd start practicing celibacy and a lot of austerities. They'd probably sleep on a hard floor. They're eating simple foods and doing long hours of spiritual practice. And the thought is to connect with the divine, because divination is having a connection with the divine, so the divine can speak to us and we can speak to them. If you're not speaking to the planets, and if the planets are not speaking to you, you're not really an astrologer. You may be a scholar on the subject, but we've got to find a way to open these mystical spiritual channels to develop our intuition. We can do practices. If you're driving the car, you can look at the car in front of you. You don't see the person in it. Feel the energy of it and ask yourself, is this a man driving or is this a woman driving? And then pull up next to them and look in there, and there may be some confusion. It's not always so clear today whether it's a man or a woman. You might have to ask them, roll down your window. Excuse me, do you identify as male or female? Maybe we don't want to do these meditative practices while we're driving. You could take a coin. Do I have a coin somewhere? Maybe not. Yeah, here we go on the floor, excuse me. You can take a coin and then use your intuition and say heads or tails, and then flip that coin and let's see what happened. What happened? Let me say tails. Whoops. There we go. So, and I get a heads. So I'm wrong. Very happy to be wrong. Shows me I need to practice more my intuition. I must be too intellectual. I'm trying to convey meanings and words to people, so I'm not enough centered. Try that. Try it 5 times. See how you do. You know, just let your intuition come, and you've got to understand that the logical mind may come and try to block you. It will say, well, we had 3 tails already, so we can't have a 4th tail, so that doesn't make sense. Statistically, this must be a heads coming next. We can't question, we've got to allow the first answer that comes to come. Try it 5 times and see how well you do. Heads or tails, simply. It's a yes or no question. It's much harder when we're getting into details in people's lives, in the birth chart. If you get it wrong, then do some mantra practice. Say 108 times, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. 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 Do 108 times and then try again. Tails. I got heads. I need to do more, see? I didn't do 108 times. If you're still getting them all wrong after 108 times, do 1,008 times. And if it still doesn't, you're still getting them all wrong, then practice again on another day. Keep practicing. We've got to develop our intuition like this. It's not a contest, of course. If you get good, if you get proficient at predicting the heads or tails, and then you try to show it off like a parlor trick, of course, you'll get it wrong because the ego becomes involved. We've got to transcend the thinking mind. We've got to transcend the ego, and then we can have clear intuition about things. Traditionally, an astrologer starts by doing a spiritual practice. He's meditating, he's doing yoga, he's doing mantra, he's doing puja. Before he looks at a chart, he'll do a puja to Lord Ganesh, and puja to all the planets to help him to get clarity. We've got to do these centering practices. In a lot of the ancient texts on astrology, they recommend these sort of practices, especially in the Kerala tradition where they're still doing these. In the Prashna Marga, they're talking a lot about before you use certain tools in astrology, bless them with mantras. Before you try to make a prediction, if you're doing Deva Prashna, you've got to do puja to Saraswati and all these kind of things. An astrologer must have a good understanding of karma. Beyond this, beyond having a desire to help, beyond having a well-developed intuition, well-developed spiritual life. Even if usually you're getting all these things wrong, this is just a little test. See how you're doing. Flip the coin. But if you have a sincere desire to help people, you need to get that answer. Keep asking and God will tell you. God will share with you what you need to know. In your meditation, in the time you're doing a spiritual practice, you may get no sense of clarity when you're looking at the chart. But just spend a few days at least on that chart. And as you're looking at it, meditate and do your prayers every day. And as you're doing the prayers, the answers that you need will come to you. In certain cases, you'll get the answers that you need presented to you. I've been told many things. I've been told this person is going to come and they're going to yell at you and they'll be very angry at you. And I'd feel startled. I said, oh no, what did I do? Why this? And then I'd do some meditation. I'd work it out so I could be calm and peaceful and respond better at that time. We get intuitions like this to help us. We may get intuition that something bad is going to happen to someone. That's when we need to begin doing the remedy for them. Don't tell them that. Just start doing the remedy. This is what an astrologer does. We don't need a good astrologer to talk to us. They can just look at the chart and they see the problems and they'll start doing the remedy because it's their duty. If God shows you these things, it's your duty. One time I remember years back I had moved to an apartment complex. And I felt good because I knew there were some Christian people there praying with faith, and I felt happy that there was people engaged actively in prayer. I knew this because they had symbols of their religion. They had statues of Virgin Mary and things like this in front of their apartments. And all of a sudden, one day I was meditating, and I heard these neighbors. Some of them I had seen, some of them I had never seen before. And I heard their prayers. They're asking Jesus for certain things. One woman in particular, I heard her ask Jesus. She said, my son has left you. He's left the Catholic faith. He's left you. He's an apostate now. He joined the Protestant faith, and I'm afraid he's going to hell. Jesus, bring him back to you. Bring him back to you in prayers, many prayers. My mother is sick. My father is sick. Help them. Help me, I need to get a good marriage. People are praying like these kind of things. I was hearing it. And then I saw Jesus, and he was hearing the prayers. I said, oh yes, I get to watch the Master now answer the prayers. I'm trying to help fulfill people's desires and make them happy and make them more successful in life. And I'm doing all these tantras and spiritual practices to help that to happen for them. And now I get to see the Master, Lord Jesus, to answer these prayers. And I looked at Jesus and he put his arms like this. I said, Lord, aren't you going to answer their prayers? He said, no, you're going to answer their prayers. He said, you think I let you hear all their prayers just so you could sit there and be lazy? No, I let you hear the prayers so that you can answer their prayers. I said, Lord, but they're praying to you, Lord. I said, who am I? I am no one to answer these prayers. He said, don't worry, I gave you the blessing that you can fulfill their prayers. The blessing came from me. You have no power, sure, but I gave you the blessing. You can do it. I said, but Lord, if they knew that me, this little guy in Hindu robes here was working to answer their prayers, they'd feel upset and offended. He said, well, shh, don't tell them. He said, they won't know the difference, and the blessing came from me anyway. But you're in the world, it's through you. You're working in the world, and it's through us as astrologers, as spiritual practitioners, to uplift the consciousness of society, to help people where they're blocked. If a person lacks confidence, we've got to build up that confident energy. Maybe pray to Durga. Om Hrim Dum Durga Ye Namaha. Hrim Bij mantra gives confidence and success and positive action. Om Hrim Dum Durga Ye Namaha. Build up that energy and send it to the person who lacks confidence. You can do that. If the person is sad, make them happy. Think of the spiritual bliss that you've experienced most and bring up that feeling, and then send a little bit of that to them, or say a mantra like Ananda, 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 until you feel blissful. Then send them the bliss. If they're too cold, generate heat, send them heat. If they're too hot, generate cool temperature, send them the cool. Just practice a cooling mantra. Shreem, shreem, shreem. Use pranayam. Breathe through the left nostril. Use shitali pranayam. And when you feel really cool, then say, Lord, please transfer that cool feeling to this person. Help them. We can counterbalance the effects of the malefic planets. And we can strengthen the effects of the benefic planets through these spiritual practices. This is how we use astrology. Um, what is a malefic planet? We don't say bad planet. We don't say good planet, because all the planets are issuing back our karma. It's all good. We don't believe in good and bad. This is a human concept. It's not a divine concept. It has no place in divination. We can't judge people, or we won't see their things clearly. I will talk about karma, but I'm going to talk a little bit about dharma first. What is dharma? It's our duty, our spiritual duty. And everyone's duty is a little bit different, based upon their spiritual maturity, based upon their power of intellect, their strength, their confidence, their place that they're born. They may be expected to do different things in this lifetime. It's not the same dharma for everybody. Some people, they may have been lazy and not worked to make money in the last lifetime, and now they've got to work and build up some material assets. There's nothing wrong with that. We can't judge that. That can be someone's spiritual practice. Someone else, maybe they've been too greedy and now they need to renounce certain things. Maybe they depended too much on the support of their spouse. Now they have trouble to get married. People have different dharma. A person is born as a thief. Maybe their dharma is to steal very well and to help the other thieves. We can't judge this. We have to go to a person where they are, and we can't expect too much of them. If we expect too much of people, we'll go right over their head. They won't be able to do anything. If we prescribe for them a remedy that's too difficult to complete, they won't do any remedy. They'll just continue to suffer. We've got to start with little steps. We've got to go to people where they are. We've got to see their situation. And we don't need to reveal what we see. We don't need to reveal our situation, our perspective. Just help a little bit. People never have a clear sense of their problems. Guruji, one time, I told a story. He said a man came to him, and of course he's worried about his career. Guruji, I didn't get a promotion, not making enough money. Please help, do something. I can get a better job. And Guruji said, I looked at this guy. He said, I've seen it before. I saw something in his face that he wouldn't live for more than 24 hours. I said, this guy thinks he needs help with his career, but he needs help to get out of this situation, that he's going to die young, tragically. He said, so he started doing some tantras. He started doing some rituals. No, dog, sit, lie down. Good girl, stay. He said, he saw this guy then a few days later, and he was fine, and he saw no sense when he looked at his face that he was troubled by this thing anymore. Sometimes people don't know what their problem is. He didn't tell him that. He didn't want to scare him. That would have made it more likely he would die. He just quietly, secretly did this work to help him. Sometimes people won't receive the help. Sometimes people can't hear what they need to hear. Sometimes they won't receive the help. All we can do is what we can do, a little bit. We've got to have wisdom. We've got to know about these things. We've got to have proper counseling skills. We've got to have a good sense of what's the right thing to do for people. And there's general things, and that changes. If it's a person's dharma to be a prostitute, maybe the same guidelines that apply to other people about relationships don't apply to that person. I met a woman when I was younger, when I was about 20. There was a very young, we should say girl, really. She was 13 years old. She lived across the street from me. It was the first place I ever got when I moved out from my parents' place. I didn't have a lot of money at that time. I just worked a little job. I had a little apartment, not in the nicest neighborhood. And the couple across from me, the stepfather and the mother of this 13-year-old girl, they were both on crack, smoking crack. And then they were forcing their 13-year-old daughter to be a prostitute so that they could afford to buy the crack. And I saw that girl, and sometimes if she'd come and fight with her father in the street, they'd be throwing the furniture out in the street and yelling at one another, and she'd be accusing him of making her to prostitute herself for his habits. I knew exactly what was happening. They would yell about it in the street. But I can't imagine how she must have felt as a 13-year-old girl. I can't imagine how that would have affected her consciousness. I can't I can't judge her. I do have some understanding how that may affect her consciousness and her karmas. Her path may be a very different path than mine has been, and that yours may be. We can't judge people, because we all have our struggles, we all have our faults. None of us is perfect, none of us has a great deal of clarity. In certain moments we can get a little bit clear. Even the realized saints will make predictions that aren't precise, that aren't entirely accurate from time to time. So karma, we have different types of karma. We have to understand karma. When we do an action with attachment to that action, then we create karma. It's like that law of physics. Any action will create an equal and opposite reaction. This is karma. Although if we act without attachment, we're free from the karma there. It could be good karma, it could be bad karma. Benefic, malefic karma. If we try to hurt people, we may get hurt. If we try to help people, we may get something good come to us. People approach life very differently. They think if they want to make a lot of money, they've got to take things from other people. They've got to put other people down. In business, these businesses, they don't try to build up their own business, they try to put down the competition. And the politicians now also, they will, instead of saying the good things about them, they say the bad things about the other politician. We have one local politician running now. I don't even know what he wants to do. He's never said to anybody what he wants to do. He's just said all the bad things about his competition. I know his criticism of the competition. I have no idea what his policy is, because he's never spoken about his policy. And he's running for office, and he may get elected. No one knows what he will do. So people focus on these negative things. Really, we've got to make ourselves like Goddess Lakshmi if we want to attract wealth. Goddess Lakshmi, always the coins is coming out of her hand and the images. We've got to give generously. And then we earn the karma to receive something sometime in the future. Maybe not in this lifetime. So we have sanchita karma, which is all of the karma from the past lifetimes. After we leave, when the spiritual body leaves the physical body, we keep that karma from all the lifetimes with us. We don't remember all that. When we come back into this lifetime, a certain amount of that karma is coming back to us in this lifetime based upon the placement of the planets. This is called our prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma. This means the karma that we've been given in this lifetime. It's our duty to face. This is our dharma, to face this karma in this lifetime. People try to avoid it. They try to run away from it. They think an astrologer can take away their karma or tell them how to do some mantra that will remove their karma. It doesn't work like that. We can only expect the karma to shift after we've shifted ourselves inwardly. Because there's some reason for all of it, and it's not some reason in the past. It's not that we did something in the past, it's that we're carrying an attachment from the thing we did in the past. Maybe we feel guilty. Maybe we feel undeserving. Maybe we feel angry. Maybe we feel just plain desire. So this is karma, and our mind is drawn in various directions because of these attachments. I like this, we think. The soul has no preference. The soul likes everything. The soul sees the divine within everything. The soul doesn't favor one experience over the other experience necessarily. But we are bound by these attachments in the mind, this thinking in this human nature that says this is bad, this is good. We've got to face the karma, and only by facing the karma can we sometimes a little bit shift the destiny. And as we do this, this is the third type of karma we call kriyamana karma. This means the action in this moment that can determine our future karma, how we respond to the prarabdha karma that we're facing. It can free us from that, or it can deepen that. A lot of people, they keep acting out, creating more and more karma. If a person gets abused, if a person gets raped, they feel angry. They keep that anger with them, and it builds up, and they don't face it, they don't release it, and then they start raping other people. I've seen this cycle. This cycle tends to happen. when we have these serial killers. Which one of the serial killers was not abused severely as a child? I'm not sure that I've heard of that one. It's very common in the case of severe abuse that a person becomes like a sociopath or a serial killer, where they abuse others. I don't know, who am I to judge? They used to claim that some pop singer, Michael Jackson, they used to claim that he was probably abusing children. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say if he was, I can't say if he was not, but I think they say that he was abused as a child. And so if he didn't do a lot of counseling and therapy and inner work to resolve that, it could be a very likely outcome. Could be very likely that he'd start acting out in that way. Certain karmas we can easily remove. We call this adriddha karma. Dridha means fixed. So dridha karmas are fixed. There's some adriddha karma that's somewhat fixed, somewhat not fixed. And then there's adriddha karma that's not real fixed. In the chart, if we have one indication of something, this is a good example of an adriddha karma. It's not set, it's not fixed. We can easily change this. Say a few mantras, it will change. But when 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planets and all the upagrahas also are indicating all the same thing. If the lagna indicates it, 9 planets indicate it, then the upagrahas indicate it, the Navamsha chart indicates it. This is a fixed karma. It's going to be very difficult to remove this. Of course, anything is possible. We've got to understand the planets issue to us our past karma. They send to us at the time of birth a certain type of light based upon the sign that they're placed in. And that light may never change throughout our lifetime, but how we respond to that based upon our level of spiritual advancement will change the effects in our life. The light will always be the same, but that doesn't make anything happen in our lives. We can have Saturn and Mars and Ketu in the 7th house, and Rahu aspecting the 7th house. This doesn't mean that we cannot get married. It might make it very difficult to get married. But we can't ever say anything is certain, and there's always a hope that we can change things, but we've got to be realistic, and we've got to not give people the wrong ideas. No, thank you. Please get down, honey. Down? Down. All the way down. Okay, or lay down. Okay, yeah. She wants me to play with the ball with her. What kind of omen is this? What is this telling us? What were you thinking just before the dog jumped up? This is some omen. Dog is inauspicious. So probably if you're thinking, should I do this, should I do that? The answer is no. Dog is black color. That's probably inauspicious. This tells us this is the color of some of the natural malefic planets, Saturn, Ketu. We need to know what planet to look at in the chart. Look at the omens right at that moment. Once we have a clear mind, we can look at those omens. What do you focus on first? Person comes, they say, I have a problem. I'm having trouble to conceive a child. You need to know what planet is causing this. We don't need to look at an astrological chart. We need to look at the omens. What is this? It's a coin. What do you notice first about that coin? I'm noticing its copper color. What planet is going to relate to copper? We could say what planet relates to money, and then we'd get Jupiter, we get Mercury, we get Venus. What planet relates to the copper color? Sun is popping out at me. Sun. We could look and see his yellow color, golden color, and say that looks like sunlight. It leads us to the sun. So maybe the remedies for the sun needs to be done. We can use these omens. From these omens we can tell if we should even work with a person. Sometimes we've got to tell the person, sorry, I can't help you. I don't have the skills needed. No licking. No licking. Thank you. Licking the sofa. Any karmas can be shifted when enough work has been done, but sometimes the person doesn't have the willpower. They don't truly have the desire. They may think they want something, and after doing a bit of work, they say, that's too much work. It's not worth it to me. I don't want to change this. It's not that the karmas can't be changed. It's that it may be very difficult and that the person may wind up not doing it, choosing not to do it in the long run. We always have some free will. But in terms of affecting the outer situation, we have very little control. We have to just accept what's going on. Everything is a perfect blessing. Where we are now, what resources we have. You may feel hungry and not have enough food to eat, and that is the perfect blessing in this moment. There may be a remedy for that. There may not be a remedy for that. So we accept what we can, and in that acceptance we can let go of the attachment to some of the karma, and we're able to shift more of it, possibly. But sometimes it's just too much effort that people choose not to shift that karma. They choose not to make the inward change that's needed. I've seen people, we had the example before of abuse causing people to act in a certain way, and I've seen people that they couldn't resolve the issues from the abuse. They kept getting abused repeatedly by various new people because they couldn't shift themselves inwardly to forgive the person who initially had abused them. Holding on to that rage and anger, held on to that state of being wounded that was drawing to them the karma of being attacked by other people. We've got to have wisdom about these things. We've got to know how to convey these things to people. A good astrologer can look at the chart and see that a person may be motivated logically and may be convinced through proving something to them. They may be they may have a lot of spiritual faith, and so if you can show them in the scriptures, it may give them faith and they do it. Maybe they're motivated by fear, and so you've got to threaten them a little bit. Your health could suffer unless you do these remedies. You never want to overwhelm people with negativity. You should always give people a positive feel, but sometimes if a person's of a spiritual disposition, it can tear into them to hear about their astrology. Because it's not always easy to look within. We can inspire people with a greater capacity more. We can encourage them to try to accomplish more. And people struggling a lot, we can't encourage them as much because we can't expect them to do as much. In the same way, we can't expect a poor person to buy a $20,000 diamond ring. But the wealthy person, a billionaire who has 20 houses, that person might need to buy several diamond rings. They might need to buy the diamond rings for all your poor clients. Because we've got to exert some effort. Some people are capable of more, some people are capable of less. But ultimately the universe is a fair place where if the person exerts the right amount of effort, a poor person isn't expected to pay $1 million. If it's not within their stars to get to $1 million in this lifetime, they won't be expected to pay that. We can resolve all these karmas. At least all these prarabdha karmas. So the Dharma is different for different people. What's expected of different people is different. We've got to have wisdom about the world. We've got to know about these things, and it's too much to talk about. It's too much to go into in this class. We've got to get good spiritual teachings from other sources. Talks on Dharma, talks on how to conduct ourselves, talks on Yama and Niyama. They help us to know what is the right things for people to do. But ultimately there's always differences, there's always exceptions, and so we've got to have the intuition to know when those are occurring. There's no universal right or wrong. There's no one simple answer. Just as there's no one simple interpretation of any placement in the chart. Even if things are tending to happen in one way, it would be the hope of an astrologer that through remedies that can shift. Because a debilitated Mars can make someone very emotional and lack confidence, and it can bring about very good qualities also. There's certain specific good qualities. The qualities of debilitated Mars are not going to be the same as Mars within his own sign. We've got to develop the positive qualities of our planetary placements. As individuals and as astrologers, we've got to guide people to do that, to try to develop the positive qualities that counter the negative qualities that are possible from the planetary placements. If we study our own chart, that's what we should do. So it's a good idea to get charts of several people that you know or famous people you can find the charts for, and look at their charts. As we start to talk about the concepts of astrology, apply them to these charts, see what's happening, see what is the indicator of these different things in their life. And I've recommended to students of astrology before that if you hear someone say something that's very interesting, very unique, very strange, I'm a triplet, I have two twins, three born at the same time, or I inherited $10 million, or I am the quarterback of the football team that won the Super Bowl. I have people in foreign countries. I hope that makes some sense to you. It probably makes more sense to you than it does to me. I hope I've not mixed up the terms from different sports. I don't know what all that... I don't keep up with the sports too much. Or someone, they say, I'm a famous ballerina. All these kind of things. They say, my father had his arm cut off in a war. Get that person's birth chart and look at the chart and find the planets that signify those things. This is what we need to do for someone when we try to help them with astrology. Someone will come with a problem. They come to the astrologer for a reason. They don't need to tell you. You could tell by looking at the chart. But it's a person's job as an astrologer to find out which planet is indicating that and see what it has to tell us. Is there some reason for this? Is this past life karma? How do we fix it? Is this black magic? How do we fix it? Is this the drishti, negative energy put on from other people? This is a big one. This can hinder people a lot. This can cause a lot of difficult karmas. How do we block this? How do we stop this? What physical practices can we do? What spiritual practices can we do? Are there planetary remedies? Because that's the thing, if the planets are indicating it, even if we resolve one physical problem, if there's some karma or something from beyond and the planets are sending that energy, it will continue to recur. I've seen people, they were possessed by demons, and I would do the puja, help them to help those demons move on. I'd see them a week later and there's more demons. We'd do it again. This happens a lot sometimes with people who are severely mentally ill. Do the puja again, I see them again, more demons again. They just remain open, so we're not going deep enough. They're not shifting that karma enough. But all kinds of things can affect us energetically, and it can be subtle and we don't even realize it. We've got to be doing a spiritual practice, and we've got to encourage others to do a spiritual practice to shield from these things. Women nowadays are getting a lot of the drishti from men because they're wearing very revealing clothing, more so than they have before in recent history. So there's a lot of desire coming from these men to the women. They're sending a lot of energy. They're opening energetic channels. This is something that hinders a lot of women. It causes them to get stuck in certain problems and difficulties. So we have to have wisdom of these kind of mystical exchanges of energy. It could be chakras. We could have things going on. Blockages within chakras. Blockages within nadis. Subtle energies within the body. Maybe people are taking on the trauma from people around them. And it stays in their body like a poison, becomes like a tumor. People have to learn to shift to those habits, and people have to learn how to release those things. Mantras may be useful, herbs may be useful, but ultimately things like this will come back if people keep exposing themselves to these things. There could be black magic, there could be all kinds of different spiritual energies, spiritual beings affecting things. Astrology gives us insight into that. It gives us a system of remedies to help with all these things. But we've got to want to help. We've got to have sincere desire. And then we have to have a lot of patience and a lot of discipline, a lot of dedication. We can't just read about the astrological concepts. We've got to meditate to open ourselves spiritually. We've got to be doing a practice. And we should be praying, Lord, help me to help others. Make me a channel for your grace and your blessings in the world. We've got to pray like this, and we've got to really want it. We've got to cry. We want it so much. We've got to repeatedly ask for it and repeatedly prepare ourselves, because it won't happen immediately, and it won't happen as much as you want. If you really want it, even after many years of work, I'm constantly saying, Lord, please open me up just a little bit so I can help people. We have to want this, and we have to work for it, and we have to realize that only eventually we'll be blessed with grace. We can't make anything happen. Just as we can't take away our karma, we can't shift anything. We can work at it, and we can pray for grace. We've got to pray for grace to be able to be proficient at the practice of astrology. There's so much discrepancy in the ways that astrology is practiced, and there's so much of a lack of certainty. It's not a system based upon facts and figures. When we talk about concepts like the planetary war, there's no consensus between astrologers. When two planets come very close together within about a degree, they say this is a planetary war. They say one planet will win the war and one planet will lose the war. It's got to be certain planets. Sun doesn't do this. Moon doesn't do this. Rahu, Ketu don't do this. The other planets might do this. Mars and Jupiter come within 1 degree from each other. They don't have to be in the same sign. They have to be within 1 degree. Then they say planetary war is happening. But it's a little unclear from the ancient texts how we determine who is the winner. Some people will say the planet with the higher longitude is the winner. Some will say higher latitude. Some will say lower longitude is the winner. There's words that indicating brightness. Some will say the brighter planet in the sky will be the winner. The bigger, brighter planet will tend to be the winner. All of these descriptions could make some sense. The other thing we've got to understand is, based upon our calculations for where the planets are, those planets may or may not be within the degree. They may be more than a degree and still in this situation of planetary war. I don't know which is right. Most astrologers will try to tell you, well, this is the system I use. It works the best for me. If they're humble, they'll say other astrologers do something, it works for them. I use this, it works for me. I'll tell you this, I don't know. I don't know which way it should be done. I use whichever system my Vedic astrology software uses. I don't know which one. I don't know how that's determined. I probably could work and figure it out, but it doesn't matter to me. Because when the planets get within about 3 or 5 degrees from one another, I consider that these planets could be in a planetary war. And if the astrology software tells me, okay, this planet wins the war, I'll consider that. But I don't say that that's the winner. I say, okay, I consider that. What I do is I meditate on the situation. And I look at the person. If you're working with someone distantly, it might be helpful to have a photo of them to look at so you can focus in on their energy. Nowadays, most people, you can look them up on Facebook, unless they're criminals or something, it'll be hidden. Or sometimes young people put the fake names. You might have to ask them, what's your fake name on on Facebook. But then you can see from their posts and their photos, you can get a sense of their energy, of their qualities, and it becomes clear which planet is it Mercury that's weak, or is it Jupiter that's weak? It becomes clear by looking at the person. Some of these techniques, we don't have any certainty, and I don't claim to have any certainty about it. But we can be much more precise in this case where there's uncertainty. I think it's a wonderful thing built into Vedic astrology that there's so much uncertainty, because it forces us to give up the logical process which will lead us to fault and error in our predictions. It forces us to rely upon the intuition. And so I said before that the modern authors on astrology don't write about omens. They don't talk about how to use the omens, but the old texts on astrology talk all about omens. We have different systems than they're talking about in Parashara, because the systems based upon omens he's talking about they require intuition, and these scholarly people have not developed their intuition. They're developing the intellect. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that, but we can focus through the outer senses. We can do things that draw our consciousness more into the outer senses. We can listen to loud music. We can go to a concert. We can seek sensual experiences. We can seek wonderful, tasty food. Go to the fanciest restaurants, and this brings our consciousness more into the outer senses, or we can do the things that silence the mind and bring us into the inner awareness, the intuition, meditation, yoga, practicing silence, practicing mindfulness. We could take a vow of silence for a week. It's a very powerful practice. It will center you. We can practice these austerities to develop our intuition, and then the science of omens becomes clear. Great example, the other day I was doing a puja for some guy, and we were working with Rahu and Ketu and Saturn because they're all together now. This was affecting him because in his birth chart these planets are all together and they're affecting his lagna, his ascendant. And as we were doing that puja, I felt it went very deep. I was feeling all this difficulties he was feeling. When we're doing remedies like this, we have to bring our consciousness to what is binding the person. We may get bound by that. You can't necessarily help someone be free from the influence of black magic or demons unless you yourself are willing to put yourself under the influence of it temporarily. The more we can bring our consciousness there, the more we can feel it and experience what they're going through, the more we can help them to release it. So I felt all these heavy things. I felt like the work had gone very deep. But after I finished the puja, I walked outside the house from the puja room, and all of a sudden there was a bunch of crows. And crows generally are an inauspicious omen. If you're asking a yes or no question and you see a crow, it means no. But it's not that simple. If the crow is in a certain direction, it means something. If he goes to a different direction, it means something. What I saw is the crows were there and they felt menacing. They felt like a heavy, oppressive presence. Then they all departed to the left, which they say is a very auspicious omen. When the crows depart to the left, there's a certain number of crows. Also, if you get one crow, it's inauspicious. If you get two crows, then that becomes auspicious. But I didn't count them. This was more like a big group of crows. It wasn't important to count them in this case because this was just like a big oppressive force. And it disappeared. They flew toward the trees, and all of a sudden they disappeared into the trees. They were making a lot of noise, and they became silent in the trees. It was as if they actually disappeared into the trees. They're no longer anywhere to be seen. And I felt like all this heavy energy was lifting off of this guy I was praying for. And to me, it was a very auspicious omen that this puja had gone very well. But I never start the puja without looking at the candle flame. And by the way it's burning, we can see if it's going well. And I don't begin the puja without the blessing of the devas. I'll pray. There's certain mantras I'll pray. Hridyasmahavyarnamasopasadya mitram devam mitradheyam no astu Anuradhan havishavardhayantaha shatam jivema sharadasaviraha. And as I'm practicing that mantra, I'm focusing. And you could say any mantra, Om, 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 with the intention to ask, Lord, am I doing a good remedy for this person? Will this remedy be successful? Should I be doing something else? And a lot of times I'll get a thought as I'm doing that. I'll see the candle flame is weak. The candle flame is going in an inauspicious direction, west, south. And I'll get a sense of some specific energy we need to work with. A lot of times I'll just pray in the different directions, knowing the energy of the guardians of each of these directions. East, southeast, south, west, north, all these directions. We can get a sense of what type of energy the person needs. The guardian of the north is Kubera, Lord of wealth. He's like Lakshmi. And we have blockages. In the northern direction, we know we need to bring up that energy of prosperity in some way or the other. All the planets, and we have the planets. I've given in the text a description of the planets, how we lay them in a puja altar if we're worshipping the planets. They're in a different direction if you know the quality of the planets. And which planet is in the north direction? It's Mercury, right? So Mercury indicates wealth. But Mercury also can indicate speech and many other things. As we work with the planets, if we pray to all 9 planets, we may realize that one needs more work than the other. We've got to be aware of these things. We work on these things. We've got to look at the omens. If there are inauspicious omens when someone approaches us, we have to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Otherwise, we're wasting our time and causing ourselves troubles that we don't need to experience. You can read about these things in the text, but it's really through practice and through working with a teacher, receiving the teaching from a teacher. It will help to awaken these practices. You should start to practice them. Start to take prashna charts before you act. A prashna chart is simply a chart of that moment. A person may come to an astrologer with a yes or no question. Or a simple question, I lost my wallet, can I find it, where is it? We don't tend to look at the birth chart to answer a question like this because it's so specific of a question that the birth chart won't present that information very clearly. We take a chart of that moment. And this person came with that question. I lost my wallet. Where is it? They came to me with this specific question. Will I get it back? Where is it? And I looked at the prashna chart and it was auspicious and I said, yes, you will get it back. And then there was a connection to the moon and a connection to the 4th house. I said, I don't know where it is, but ask your mother. They called their mother. They said, do you know where my wallet is? And the mother said, yeah, I've been meaning to tell you. When you were here the other day, you left it. And so they went and they got it. We should take a prashna chart before we do something, if it's important, even if it's unimportant, to practice the principles of astrology. I'm going to the grocery store. Take the prashna chart. Is it auspicious? Okay, then go. Is it inauspicious? Then don't. Do something else. If it's inauspicious, study that chart. See what would be auspicious to do in that moment. If you're starting a class, take a prashna chart. It's really the same as looking at the candle flame. When I start the puja, the flame is there. So I look at the flame and I ask the devas, shall I begin? Sometimes I just get the feeling, wait. I guess the time is not auspicious yet. I just wait 15 minutes and then I start. Sometimes I get the sense, wait a day, do it another day. To an astrologer, time is a wonderful thing. Everything happens in the right time. Everything's a blessing. They don't get upset in a traffic jam. They say, uh-oh, I guess I was destined to get there too early. I need to wait longer. Or they might say, I guess there's people here that need my help and need my blessing. And they start looking in the traffic jam and the other cars. They see the person and they say, oh, that person's lacking confidence. They need some Durga mantras. That person is too greedy, and they're too focused on material, sensual things, and they're living in excess and causing themselves pain and suffering. We have diabetic people. They eat too much sugar, too much sugar, too much sugar. Then they get sick. Like this. Maybe they need detachment. Maybe they need the energy of Saturn, the energy of Shiva. We can pray for them. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And then maybe there's a car crash and their people are injured and they need healing. We pray to Dhanvantari, we pray to Mrityunjaya to save their life. When we slow down, we start to notice even more. We notice the houses and the trees and things, and it all needs help. It all needs a blessing. Astrology gives us the key. It unlocks the doorway for us to know how to give that blessing, but we've got to start to practice it all the time in our lives. We can study Muhurta, we can study electional astrology and start to favor auspicious times and not to favor the inauspicious times. Here's one very powerful practice for Muhurta for everybody. Learn what your Janma Nakshatra is, your birth Nakshatra. This is the constellation, not the 12 signs, 27 nakshatras. I haven't defined these terms yet. But your moon is going to be in one nakshatra at the time of your birth. Just enter your birth time, place, date into the Vedic astrology software. There's the freeware I recommended, I gave a tutorial for. And then look at what nakshatra your moon is in. That is your Janma Nakshatra. Every month, the moon is going to transit through that nakshatra, and during that time, they say it's very inauspicious for doing any positive thing. It's very auspicious for meditation, because you're going to tend to be emotional at that time. You get a good sense about the way the movement of the moon affects you to be aware of that day every month. Don't plan a new special activity. Don't start a new job that day. Instead, plan to spend some extra time meditating. Don't be afraid of life. Go and do your day-to-day routine, but be aware of it. Be aware of the full moon also when people get externalized and energized and energetic and crazy. If you're driving in the roads during full moon, people are pushy. They'll jump in front of you. They'll cut you off. They'll cut in front of your car. And during the new moon, people get internalized and they get less pushy. They get more timid, and so they'll be scared to go ahead of you. They'll let you go in the new moon time. Often I'm out just driving and I'll say, wow, the people seem crazy. Is it the full moon? And we'll look it up and the people, and yeah, it's full moon. Become aware of these things. Full moon, new moon, and your birth nakshatra. Pay attention to these things. This is starting to understand the nature of time, the nature of the planets, the nature of astrology. I've learned just a little bit about this from my guru. Sridhar Guruji is a realized master, and he's a master of astrology. At the age of 13, his astrology teacher proclaimed, "You are a master of astrology." He never looks at the charts, but he's always practicing much more than anyone. He's always doing it. He doesn't teach too much about astrology directly, but he's given some talks on astrology, and I'm sharing one of his talks on astrology here. That will be uploaded in this class. So you should go and listen to Guruji's introduction to astrology. So much is there. It's so deep. And feel his energy. Feel his blessing. He's transferring that energy of the teaching. It's a wonderful thing. So I highly recommend that you listen to that teaching by him in two parts. Many times. There's really so much there. Taught in the traditional way by a true master. of astrology. So email if you have questions, and we're talking next about what are the definitions? What is a Vedic chart? How do we draw that? What is a planet? What is a Rashi? What is a Nakshatra? What is a Bhava? All these basic definitions, we've got to just lay this out quickly, and then we'll start to talk about the analysis. But remember, we've got to develop the intuition to be able to use any of these techniques.